everyone, it's me Darlene. I am here today with a crocheting tutorial. We are going to make a Scrappy Afghan together. I absolutely love the way these come out. I have seen quite a few videos on YouTube about the Scrappy Afghan, but most of them use half double crochet, and as much as I love half double crochet, I want to make mine a little bit different, and we're going to be using just plain old simple single crochet. I find that it makes the colors blend just that much more, I don't know, it's more seamless, because the taller your rows get, there can be jumps when the color changes, and I think with single crochet we kind of eliminate that. But there is no wrong way or right way to do this. We're going to be using single crochet. Feel free to do half double crochet or even double crochet if you like. I've tried it with double crochet also, and that worked out well. But you know, the rows are much taller, so it works that much faster, but then you do have that jagged effect when you're doing the color changes. This Afghan is quick and easy. The best thing about it is we are not going to be weaving in any ends. It's important to me that we don't have to do that, because we're going to have tons of color changes and we don't want to be doing all that weaving. The only ends we'll have to weave in is the very beginning, at the end of our chain, our foundation chain, and at the very end. Everything else is going to be worked in as we go. If you don't like that method, you can certainly just leave your ends hanging and weave them in at the end if that's what you prefer. The other awesome thing about this Afghan is that it's going to allow you to use up all those balls of scrap yarn that you have. I have, you know, tiny little balls like this. All the way down to big balls, for those of you who like big balls. Okay, let's get back to crochet, because I know what you were thinking. If you don't have scrap yarn, don't worry. You can buy yarn and still make it a Scrappy Afghan. And I'll be talking more about how this all plays out with colors and things like that as we go. The other cool thing is we're not going to be making a border. Since we're working with 2 strands of yarn at once, it's a pretty rugged Afghan, and you don't really need a border around the edge. You are free to make one if you want, but I will be skipping that step. I just want to knock out this blanket and be done with it. I don't know exactly what size Afghan I'll be making yet. I kind of want, you know, just like a throw size, but I might do, I don't know, maybe 40 by 50 or 35 by 50, something like that. I'll figure that out as I go. But no matter what size you want to make, I'm going to show you how to figure out how much yarn you're going to need so that you can weigh your scraps. And if you don't have enough scraps to make your Afghan, then you're going to need to buy some skeins. So let's just move on over to a table, and I'm going to get started and show you what to do. Believe it or not, this is my favorite part of this whole tutorial. I get to go through these wonderful yarn scraps of all kinds, and I get to ball them all up. So I end up with a basket full of balls like this. Now I even have some scrap pieces. I didn't know what I was going to do with these. These are from tutorials that I've done. So I'm just going to be taking them apart and balling those up. Stuff like this can still be put into a scrappy quilt. You can even use fuzzy yarns like this. I suggest that you just make sure you have enough to add here and there throughout the entire Afghan, just to make it more cohesive. I do have some cotton yarn in here. That's the only thing I won't mix. I don't see it right now, but I know I have some. I would suggest that you stick just to the acrylic yarn. That way you don't have to worry about certain parts shrinking. This is cotton right here. You don't want to worry about certain parts shrinking when you wash, and you want to be able to throw this in the washer. So let me ball up as much of this stuff as I can, and then I'm going to show you how to figure out if you have enough yarn. I balled up most of that yarn that you saw in the basket. I'm going to need some more different colors and things. I will go look in the closet because I know I have plenty more. But before we look at the yarn, I want to show you how to figure out about how much yarn you need, so you'll know if you have enough scraps. If you don't have enough scraps, that's fine. You can just buy some skeins of yarn to get as much weight as you need. All right, figure out what size Afghan you want. Now this is heavy, so it makes a really good blanket in the winter. If you know, have like a lightweight blanket and you put this Afghan on top, it adds a lot of weight. It's gonna keep you nice and toasty. So make sure that, you know, it covers your bed if you want it for your bed. You might want some overhang. You just figure out how much you want. I'm going to show you how much yarn you need for your size. Whatever size you come out with, round up to the nearest 10. So if you're coming out with, you know, 58 inches wide, round up to 60, and the same with the length. You know, it's better to have too much than not enough, and it's going to make for easier math. Okay, so for my example, I'm going to say roughly 40 by 60. I really don't want it 60 long, maybe 55, but I'm rounding up to 60 for easy math. 40 by 60, you're going to divide each one of those by 10. So that is 4 by 6, and that's my little sample that I'm going to make. 4 inches wide by 6 inches tall. This ends up being 1/100th of the Afghan that you need. We're going to weigh this, and then we're going to multiply the weight by 100, and it's going to tell you how many ounces of yarn you need for the entire Afghan. So let me weigh this right now. My little piece weighs 3/8 of an ounce. So 3/8 times 100 is 37.5 ounces. So let's just say 38 ounces, always better to round up. So I need approximately 38 ounces of yarn. Now what I need to do is I need to weigh my balls of yarn. So let me go do that. 38 ounces is just like under 2.5 pounds. There's 16 ounces in a pound, and I have like over 3 pounds of scraps here. So I have plenty for the Afghan. So now let's go on over to the table and I'll show you how you can sort this. Before we get started, I forgot to talk about your hook. You need a big hook for this project, and I'm actually going to be using this one that does not have any number on it. This is the, you know, the closest to that. These might actually be the same size, but this one is N 10 millimeter. It also has N/15 10 millimeter. Let me see here. I guess the size would normally be N/P-15 in US sizes, 10 millimeter in other sizes in other countries. And I would actually prefer to have larger, maybe like a 15 millimeter, a P/Q. I think it would make it a little bit more flexible. I don't want something very stiff, but this is pretty good, and it's a blanket. You want it to be nice and weighty and heavy, and it's going to be very durable, and you're going to be able to wash and dry this for many, many years, and it's going to work out great. So you just get yourself a big hook. Obviously, if you're using thin yarn, if you have like a whole bunch of baby yarn scraps, then you're going to want a smaller hook. Just figure out what works best for you. As for sorting your scraps, you want to make 2 piles, pile A, pile B. Pile A will always be used for strand A, pile B will always be used for strand B. Most people who make this Afghan, at least the ones that I've seen on YouTube, do lights and darks. Now, it's up to you what you consider a dark. I don't really have a lot of dark yarn, so I would not have enough for pile B with a lot of dark yarn, so I'm not going to be able to sort that way. Another way you could sort would be like pastel colors for one pile, and then bright colors for the next. I probably could do that. Another thing you can do, especially if you don't have a lot of scraps. Now, I need about 38 ounces, so let's just cut that in half for the heck of it. You know, about, did I say 38? I think so. You know, roughly like 18 ounces per pile. If I want, I could just have all the scraps in here, like that. Except maybe I would pull out like black, because that's just so dark. I could just use all of my colors for one pile, and then in the other pile I can go and look and see what I have for actual skeins. Now let's say I have enough black, just enough black for one strand to just always be black. I actually would love that, because I love black against colors. So one strand could be all black, and then the other strand I could be changing colors. So I'd only be changing colors on like either A or B, whatever we call it. Or if I had a lot of white left over, I could do that. And you know, you just can figure it out and make it work, but it doesn't have to be that you're changing both strands all the time, although it does make it look way more scrappy. But this way, if you use just one color, it makes it look more blended. So there's good about either way. I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do, and then we will get started. I decided, I think I have enough. I haven't weighed these, but I have more yarn that I can go through. I'm going with light or soft colors. Like this isn't really light, but it's a soft shade of green. Look at the tiny little balls I made, because I don't throw any of this stuff away. So kind of light and soft versus dark and bold. I think I'm going to like this very much. Now, you know, this is yellow. It's not really dark, but it's a bold yellow as opposed to like this softer yellow. So soft yellow here, bold yellow here. And it's on the floor now. So this is how I am going to sort, and let's get started. I want to point out that I added 2 more skeins to my darks or bolds and 2 more to my lights or softs. The first row and the last row, you don't want to be changing yarn on your foundation row or your ending row. And so I'm going to start with one of these lights and one of these darks, and we can do like a row and a half of just those 2 colors before we start making color changes. I am going to start my row with peach and black. This is from my bold and dark. This is from my light or soft. And if you need a video on how to do a slip stitch and your chain, I will have a link to that down below. And I'm just going to start making a chain, and I'm going to aim for like 38 inches wide. So I'm just going to make my chain, and I will just measure it now and then. And when it's 38 inches wide, I will chain 1 extra, and then I will be back. I made my chain, and this is probably going to be wider than 40, but that's okay. I ended up chaining 80 stitches. I like to have either a chain that can be divided by 5 or 10, because when I count, I don't like to count like 1 to 80. I'll count like in groups of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if the phone rings or something, I'm not allowed to put this down until I've completed like my group of 5 or group of 10. I don't need to know that I'm, you know, actually like at 60 or 65 or 70. As long as I do in groups of 5, I know I'm not going to screw up. And when I get to the end, as long as I have a group of 5 left over, or 10, however I'm counting, I know I did okay. So I actually chained 81 because I'm going to be working 80 stitches. Now all we're going to do is we're going to do single crochet, and I have a video for that, but I'll show you right here. We're treating the 2 strands as one throughout this entire project. So you just stick your hook in the first available V and pull up, yarn over, pull through both. That's it. Go in, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And I'm going to do that all the way across. I will not be changing colors. This is what my first row looks like. This is just 1 row, and it's pretty tall, so this works really quick. At the end of every row, since we're doing single crochet, we're going to just chain 1 and turn. Now I'm going to work, probably like to here, and I'm going to swap my light color, and I will show you how I am going to do that. Easy peasy, and we have no ends to deal with at the end. I am going to be working under the entire V, so I go in, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Remember, we're considering this 1 strand of yarn. So I'm just going under the entire V, pull through, yarn over, pull through those loops. So let me work a little bit, and then I will be right back. Okay, I'm going to change. I'm calling my light color A. And I'm going to cut, leave it pretty long. And I need another light color. Let's just add this little tiny ball of white. So I am going to, and this is thinner, and that's okay. You can mix. It doesn't have to all be the same. I'm going to tie these together. Just, I don't even know what kind of knot, but it's just the kind where you go around your finger and you're going to just pull through. Now I'll show you, but you want to leave a fairly long tail because it's going to make it easier to weave in. So I don't know, like maybe 4 inches or so, going around my finger, and then I'm just going to pull those 2 strands all the way through. That kind of a knot. Just pull it tight, and we're not cutting. I mean, you might have little ends to trim at the end, but that's it, no weaving. So now I'm going to continue doing my single crochet, and when I get to that point that I just joined, like right now, I am going to take the tail, and I'm just going to lay it on my work as best as I can. Let me just finish this stitch. Don't worry about where your knot is. Now I'm going under the V, and I'm also going under the tail, and I'm just going to trap that there. I'm going to work my single crochet right over it. So I'm going under my V and under the tail, single crochet right over it. If you have leftover skeins, do yourself a favor and ball them up. It's just so much easier to work with than having to deal with constantly pulling yarn out. Okay, I'm going under the V, and I'm just going to trap that tail under the V and under the tail, under the V, under the tail. And that was really long. I mean, I could trim some of that. I like to trap it in at least 4 stitches. I'm just going to go with it, and I'll show you. Okay, so now I've just got these little bitty ends. I mean, I can try trapping them under there if I want, but they're probably going to stick out. But let's just keep going a few stitches, and I'm going to actually use up my white, and then we'll change again, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about a tip about changing. See, this black, it just wants to be all knotted, and it's driving me insane. I'm going to make it into a ball when I'm done with this little step here. So let me just get to the end of the white. Couple of things I want to tell you before I forget. You don't want to do your color changes too close to the end because you want to have room to weave in your end. So you can see I'm running out of the white here soon, so I have plenty of room. But let's go and look at the part we did the weaving. Where did that happen? Right here I see my knot. That is so not a big deal because this is a Scrappy Afghan. And on this side I can't see that I have anything woven in at all. And on this side I can see it a little bit. You know, it's just, that's just the way it's going to be. It is so much better than weaving in the ends, I promise you. And after this is washed and stuff, that's just all going to, it's going to find its way, and it's going to just be perfect. If you do see little ends sticking out, now I did, oh, see right here, you know, that's very short. I can just like kind of stretch that, but see, they're still wanting to stick out. So I'm just going to trim that. That's it for those ends. We're done. When you wash your Afghan, if you see ends sticking out, don't think that means that your knot's coming undone. It's not. Your knot is like way back here, and you can just always trim ends as they become free. So let's change colors again. I am going to do another light. I'm not being fussy at all. Pick a ball, any ball, obviously, as long as it's at least a different color. It could be the same kind of color, but a different shade. And once again, just to show you, I'm going to make my tail fairly long, and I'm going to make that very simple a knot and continue crocheting. Oh, I'm already up to my knot, so where's my tail? Here's my tail. Just going to kind of lay my tail down. It can be a little awkward at first, but you'll get the hang of it. You're bound to. You're going to be doing this constantly throughout the Afghan. Just such a cool way to use up your scraps. And if I want, I could just trim that right here, right now, my little ends. Now I'm going to go to the end, I'll chain one and turn, and then on the other way, we'll change the dark. I am very happy to be cutting this black because I just need to ball it up. It's giving me a hard time. And it's awkward for me to crochet at a table. So I'm trimming the black, I should say, snipping the black. And I'm going to add another bold color, this color. Now I am going to make sure that I have black throughout, and I'll probably end with black also. It kind of makes it like the border on the top and bottom. But when we have more done, you will see that this edge is very rugged, durable. We don't need a border. In fact, you don't really want a border. I mean, you can have a border, but it makes it look more scrappy without. And now I'm going to just do the same, but I've changed my dark color. So I'm coming to my knot. I'm going to just lay the ends down and trap them under my work. Now I have 2 balls that want to run away. I crochet on my couch. Okay, see, I'm just going under my 2 tails. Please do not be fussy about your color combinations. It's all going to look awesome. It really is. But for those of you who like something more planned, but that it still will look kind of scrappy, like if you love blues, you could just buy a whole bunch of shades of blue and then, you know, have that be color A, and then B's could be, you know, all black or all white or shades of green or whatever you want. And I'm just going to continue. So I'm just going to work on this for a bit, and then I will show you what I have. I will, you know, be changing some colors. Sometimes I'm only going to want a little bit of a color change, and then, you know, other times I might do more. You know, it's kind of almost like you have to plan the scrappiness of it. You don't want the whole thing to be like, you know, 3 rows of just one color combination, because then all of a sudden that doesn't look scrappy anymore. So just have fun with it. You cut whenever you feel like it, but it's best to never change your A and B at the same time. You want those to be jagged, you know, not having your knots at the same place. And then, like I said, you can like do one more than the other and then swap. Whatever you want. We'll just keep going, and I will show you what I have in a bit. I am back. I have been working on this. I worked on it a little bit last night, and I'm working on it again today, and I absolutely love this. I not only love how it's coming out, but I just love the creativeness of it, putting the colors together. It is just so fun. I think I'm going to want to make more of these. So I want to show you first, this is what I've done. I am, right now, I'm going to stop and snip my little ends, and I'm going to show you exactly how I'm doing that. Where are my scissors? You have little ends sticking out. I'm just like tugging on them a little bit and cutting really close, and then when you just pull it a little bit, that all disappears. So I'm going to go ahead and trim my ends, and then I will come right back. Remember to do both sides, because you'll have some on the other side too. I think I got them all. I might find some, like, see, I found one right here. You might want to do this a little at a time like I just did, or you can wait till you're done the whole Afghan and do it all at the end. A couple of other things that I want to talk about. This fuzzy blue yarn. At first I was like, well, I'd like to add some a little bit here and there, but then I kind of thought maybe I won't, but I did. And boy, am I glad I did. I put just a little bit of it right here. And what I'm going to do is spread it out through the Afghan, and maybe, you know, like maybe next time have it more on one side and then another side, and, you know, just stagger it throughout. I liked it so much that I went into my closet and I got some more fancy yarns. I pulled 3 that will be considered lights. This that has like a thread running through it, and this fuzzy nightmare. I can't imagine ever doing an entire project with something like this. I don't know, I've never really tried, but I'm certainly going to add some of that. And then for my darks, I have a brown that has some glittery thread, this, and this. So I'll be adding all those textures. Now don't worry if your yarn is thicker or thinner. It's going to happen. It's a Scrappy Afghan. And you can see, well, maybe you can't see too good, but my edge, you know, it is, where are you? Where are you? Right here. You know, it curves in a tiny little bit, puffs out, depending on if I'm using some thick yarn or thin in the row. And even in the Afghan, you can see it like maybe wants to bulge a little bit. When this is washed and dried a couple of times and used, it's going to all fall into place. What else did I want to mention? Oh, I was also undecided about using some of these variegated yarns that I have, but I totally added those too. Let me see, I have several colors. And, you know, I'm calling this one the dark or bold. This is soft or light. This is kind of in between. So I'm going to see how much I have of it. That will probably be a dark. And then this will probably be considered a dark. I even have this. So I have a lot to play with. I don't think I'm going to be very fussy as to if it's a light or a dark. And I do have some in here, and you would not really notice at all. It's like built into this. I mean, what we're doing looks variegated as it is, so I'm very happy that I introduced those. And then another thing is, like, sometimes, you know, when I had like a dark yellow, like this is considered a dark or a bold, and then I have some softer yellow. I don't have one right here to show you. I was like, maybe all yellow should be light. No. Oh, here's an example. This is how I ended. You know, I ended up putting the dark and soft yellow together, so you can see. You know, I have the two strands, light and dark, together, and I really liked that. And I am paying a tiny bit of attention as to like where my colors are going. I want black to be prominent throughout. I want to make sure I have black and, you know, every few rows, even if it's just a little bit of it. Sometimes I'll put more. I started with some black, and then I put a little bit of black in here. And then to balance it off, I'm making sure I had some black on the other end. So you can, you know, be scrappy, but in a calculated way. But don't overthink it. Sometimes I pull a color and I'm like, oh, maybe I should use that instead. Nope, I pulled it out. I'm using it. And feel free to just, you know, do a little bit at a time sometimes, and then do longer. Remember that you can absolutely use just little short, you know, parts of a color, and or you can do like a whole row across whenever you want. Just have fun with it. You're going to love this. I am going to continue, and if I have anything else to tell you before I'm done, I will jump in and tell you. Or if I don't, you'll just see it at the end. I did want to remind you that the little practice piece you made to see how much yarn you're going to need, you need to take this apart and use the yarn in your Scrappy Afghan. I'm back, and I'm done the Afghan. It has probably been about 2 weeks since I last talked to you guys. The Afghan actually worked out really quick. So loving this. But I didn't work on it every day. I worked on it as I could. I'm going to be measuring it, and I'll tell you the measurements in just a bit. Right now, I just want to hold it up and show it to you guys. There might still be some little bit of loose ends. Gee, I can't really show it to you all in one shot, I don't think. I'll try to take some pictures, if I can remember, on the bed after. But I absolutely love how this turned out. So let me sit down and we're going to talk about it a little bit. This is the first time I ever make a complete Scrappy Afghan like this, and I am addicted. This was so fun, and the rows were just working so fast. Let me tell you a few things. Now, mine looks awfully fuzzy because I did add fuzzy, let me see if you can see that. First, I have to be able to see it. Some fuzzy pink yarn like this that just has this kind of a fuzz. I also added some of this blue that's like, I think like eyelash. How can I show you? I think you can see some of that there. I had other textured yarns. I love that. I would totally do that again. Remember, if you don't have scraps, you can just go out and buy different colors of yarn, and I would totally throw in some fuzzy, funky, weirdo yarns in there. All I did is I made sure that I did repeat those a little bit here and there throughout. I did not pay attention, though, to actual design. This was just like so freeing to just be able to do whatever. The other thing is, what was I going to mention? Oh, the variegated yarns. I loved those too. Now, it's pretty hard for me to actually pick where something is variegated. Maybe this one, let's see, the one here with the pink and blue, a lot of, I don't know. It's hard to tell between the variegated that I bought that way or just the variegated yarns that I ended up creating by changing colors constantly. The only downside to this, don't make it in the summer, because this was heavy and hot on my lap. You know, I have the AC, so that's okay, and I would work on it a little bit at night, a little bit at a time. If I got too hot, that was quitting time, and I would put it away. Now, I changed colors sometimes constantly, sometimes not so much. One thing I did not do is I never changed the 2 strands at the same time because I didn't want those knots together. I'd always work out at least, 5 or 6 inches and change. Now, one time I had 2 yarns that happened to run out at the same time, so I just took it apart a little bit and I cut one of those yarns to make that part shorter, and then I was able to connect, not at the same spot. I actually even used some threads of yarn that were like this long as I could tie 2 knots, leave my ends, and I had enough yarn to make even just 1 stitch. I went for it. The only thing about that now is when you're working over your loose ends, I went ahead and crocheted over all 4 of those. I captured the 4 ends because they will overlap. I captured the 4 ends and just crocheted over all that mess. And it's so scrappy, and with different textures and different sizes of yarn and stuff like that, you're not going to notice if it's a little bit more bulge, in certain areas. And, it doesn't, it didn't show. But if that would bother you and you don't want to crochet over all 4, you could always leave 2 of those sticking out and then go ahead and weave them in, like in the other direction or something like that. I chose to just do all my ends snipping when I was done. I just wove all those ends in, crocheted them in like I showed you as I went, and then at the end I just sat down and I like folded it in half and then like a quarter, and I worked on that 1/4 at a time and got as many as I could. Again, I just pulled them a little bit and then snip and let it bounce back in. You're going to end up, missing some, and you'll find some later as they work out in the wash, but they're just going to get fuzzy and they're just going to blend in, and it's all good. So there's really not too much else that I want to tell you. I totally could have even had a little bit bigger of a hook, so I do need to get a bigger hook. Again, I'm not exactly sure what size, but just get a big-ass hook. The biggest you have, or if you don't have big, go find yourself a big hook, and, the bigger, the looser it is. This is a heavy, heavy blanket. Somebody who likes weight, you put this on top of a blanket or a sheet on your bed in the winter, and you are going to be toasty. Oh, the border. I didn't do any border. I did say I wouldn't, and that's the way it is, and that's the way I want it. I just am leaving it like that, and, the top too. It's just like this. I just did weave in the ends of, my 2 corners, the starting and the ending. That's all I had to weave in. Everything else was worked in as I go. You don't know how happy that makes me. Fucking happy. I'm anxious to start another project for you guys. So I hope that you enjoy this project. Please give it a try. If you don't want a heavy Afghan on your lap in the summertime, just make yourself some nice big 12-inch or 10-inch or 15-inch squares, and then just weave those together. You could just, even just do like an over stitch. What is it called? A whip stitch? I don't know my stitches, but you can just put them together any way you want, any way that even shows the yarn as much as possible. More scrappy. The more scrappier, the better. All right, that is it for now. Thank you so much for watching. I will be back with more soon. Bye.